We have this luscious little strawberry here we're going to paint and show you how to do a little bit of texture and highlight and some shadow here. This is a fun little motif actually that's taken out of my little pocket book that has the binding on the side. It's a 4x6, which is a lot of fun because it's a perfect size for doing something like this with the strawberries. So get your supplies and we'll get started painting. This is a new little motif that comes out of my pocketbook series. So I've got a few reds from my tropicals mixed up over here, and I am going to get started by taking this red here and coming along the outside of this strawberry at the edge. I'm going to try to go around these little dots that I've drawn in here just to kind of give you a gauge for the seeds. And we're just putting in a light pink for right now, and we'll go in and add some more layers as we go along, or you can just do it very basic and put more in right away depending on how much time you want to spend on your strawberry. Now I am going to purposefully leave a little bit of white up here so that I have the white of the paper to use as a highlight right here, maybe right here in the middle. So keeping that in mind, I'll try to go around these areas. And I'm okay leaving some stroke marks because this is my first layer and the strawberry has a lot of texture. So having these different stroke lines in this case can work to my advantage later on. I would not advise that on other subjects. If you're trying to get a nice smooth look, then you'll want to plan ahead and be sure that you don't have these kind of stroke lines showing. So I'll end my white area right here so that this starts to become the shadow. Planning a little bit of head, and then we'll come around all of these little seed areas in a bit. And while it's still kind of a little bit wet, this is soaking into the paper pretty quickly here. I'm just adding a little bit of water to get rid of some of those harder lines that I was just talking about. You can come in and take a little bit of this yellow and kind of, well, I went out of the lines there. So I added a little bit of yellow, put that in a couple of places where that strawberry needs to mature, and we'll let that dry for a little bit. And I've got this darker red that I think I made out of my island, which is a green. It's kind of really pink looking, but it is more intense. I'll start adding that shadow. This is going to look more pink than your normal strawberry because of this set not really having a true deep red. You can add a little bit of black into yours or some brown. I'm going to go over some of that and I'll have to clean up my edges a little bit. I think this red has a little bit of brown in it, so I mixed some red with green because they're across, and that's Patea over here, and they're across the color wheel from each other, so that's going to give you kind of a deeper color. Just don't mix too much, it'll be muddy or black. Add another layer in here. I don't want that to be light pink, but I'm leaving that open and I'll show you what I will do in a bit. So we've got the form here, and it might seem a little funny to you because it doesn't look right until it's done, so be patient. I'll come in here on the top and sort of emulate like the top of that strawberry where it's ripening and a little bit of shadow there. And now I'm going to come in and use this coconut, or if you've got like a yellow and a brown to kind of get sort of a gold color, I'm going to start popping a little bit of that in the center here. So now I've got a lot of gold in there, so I'm going to wait for that to dry. Now I'm going to kind of start to fill in a little bit around these with another layer, which will just, even if that color isn't technically darker, it will look dark because it's filling it in. As you add more layers on, it covers up the white of the paper. And it makes it look darker. Now that looks kind of funny. It's kind of hard to think about doing this because it feels like it's not going to look right. And this is somewhat realistic the way I have it, but it's really just implied. And you could make this very realistic. Grab a photo of a strawberry online to kind of see the nuances in it. See, that's kind of dark for that area, so I'll pull that back and I'll come in and kind of add that. Now I'm sort of dabbling in some color in here instead of going all the way around. I'm sort of dotting it around, dabbling, just to start to break up those lines, give it a little bit of texture like a strawberry would have. Since that's my lighter area, I want to make sure this is at least darker than that one is. And then to come in here where we've got our white area, I'm going to, this is supposed to look like it's shining because the light is hitting that rounded part. So I'm putting in a few dots, then I turn my paper a little bit so they all didn't look like the same direction. I'm connecting a few and I'll let that dry. And then I'm going to go in here and dabble in some, kind of like I did over here. I think the key to this is don't freak out about the different lines and the perfection of it because you're adding more and more layers. So it will come together at the end. And when you give it a little bit of distance, it'll also look more realistic because you're not so close up. Like if you put it in a frame and looked at it from a distance, you're not going to see all the detail, but you will kind of get the idea of the dimension. Okay, now I'm going to take some very watered down of that red and fill in, maybe leaving a little bit of the white. This one's missing its gold seed here. Tapping over that a little bit to tone down the white. So you can see it's starting to get a little bit of texture here, and then just going to add over the areas I already painted with red so they're a little darker. But I really want to make sure I maintain the white of the paper. If you already went over too much white, then just use a very light pink as your white and then go over with darker red, pink, so that it creates a couple of tones. like that. And you can also take a gray, but we can, after that red is sort of dry, you can add in a little bit of that across here, and it'll still show some of the red underneath, so it's not solid black, but it starts to give a little bit of dimension in those little areas. So if you have a dark black in your box, make sure to water it down a little bit so that it's not too dark. This one is more of a gray already that I mixed up and had a lot of water in it. Test it out first over here when you're doing black, that way you know that you like your color. So now we've got most of our strawberry done, so we'll work on our leaves, and I mixed up some palm and tiki to make these nice fresh green, and I didn't put too much tiki in it. I love to use tiki in that olive color green, but with a strawberry it's more of a bright fresh green. So I'm leaving a little bit of the white of the paper there to give it some dimension and illusion of reflection. You've got to get your brush into these little areas for the leaves. Hopefully you've got a fine tip brush. I want it to be a little bit darker, just to kind of add a little bit of character to these leaves. I think I lost track of what one was what over there. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'll go ahead and work on my stem. Okay, so the basics you saw where we filled that in, we kept adding more layers, we left some white here, we used the clear brush to go over that to kind of connect it so that it's got a little bit of light pink, a little bit of white in here, and then if you just see anything else that might stand out, you can go in and just, especially after it's a little more dry, and just put in a few more details with the edge of it. You can always add a shadow if you'd like, but we're just working on those last details and making sure there's a little bit of pink, a little bit of red, a little bit of deeper shadow type red throughout. And you don't have to be this specific. You could just literally paint this pink with a little bit of these seeds in here and it'll look so adorable and you'll have fun doing it. So it just depends on how detailed you'd like to do it and how much time you'd like to spend. And this is our finished strawberry.